Imagine for a second that your boss completely changes your project deadlines.
Oh, nightmare.
Right. And then on top of that, your partner accuses you of being distant, and you're handed this, like, highly suspicious financial contract. And all of this happens in the exact same week.
Yeah, most people would absolutely call that a crisis.
Exactly. They'd be pulling their hair out, convinced the universe was just actively punishing them. But according to the forecast we're decoding today, that exact sequence of events is actually the blueprint for the most significant month of your decade.
Which is wild to think about. But, the word crisis is really just our knee-jerk reaction to rapid evolution.
Oh, for sure.
Like, we like to think of our lives as these slow, gradual, comfortable arcs, right? We want to grow, but we want to do it at a leisurely pace.
Yeah, like on our own terms.
Exactly. The universe, though, sometimes it just concentrates all of that necessary evolution into a single, intensely pressurized window of time. It forces your hand.
It really does. So welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today we are looking at a forecast that doesn't just predict a busy few weeks. And it definitely doesn't deal in that vague, fluffy advice about, staying positive.
Right. No toxic positivity here.
Nope. The source text we're examining today is this incredibly specific astrological reading. It's titled Aries, April 2026, The Master of Destiny. And our mission today is to unpack this document, which breaks down the upcoming month into these really clear, actionable phases based on the actual movements of the planets.
Yeah, it's very structural.
It is. We're exploring the profound shifts predicted for, your general atmosphere, your career, your love life, your finances, and even your physical health.
I mean, to hear a document call a single 4-week period the most significant month of the decade for you, that is a massive claim.
It's huge. A decade is a long time.
Right. It's 120 months. So to single out April 2026 means we are looking at foundational, tectonic shifts in how you operate as a human being. And knowledge only carries power when you truly understand the mechanisms behind it. If we just read this forecast to you like a grocery list, you completely miss the utility. We have to look at the why and the how behind all these predictions.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the overarching theme of the month. Before we look at specific areas like your career or your wallet, we really have to establish the overarching weather of April.
You have to know the climate.
Right, because this unique combination of planetary energies dictates absolutely everything else that follows. You have to know if you're walking into a blizzard or a heat wave before you decide what clothes to put on.
That's a great way to put it. The atmosphere you're breathing changes the way every cell in your body reacts. And the atmosphere for you this month is incredibly dense.
Yeah, the text states right up front that as you step into April 2026, the spotlight is focused entirely on the evolution of your identity.
Completely on you.
And the reason for this is that Aries is currently hosting two incredibly powerful, slow-moving planets. We're talking about Saturn and Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
And the text calls this combination a dreamer architect energy.
Which is such a cool phrase.
I love that phrase. It feels incredibly cinematic. But before we get into the poetry of it, I want to play proxy for the listener for a second. The text says this is happening while the sun travels through your first house until April 20th.
Right.
So for someone who maybe only knows their sun sign, they read a horoscope in a magazine occasionally, what actually is a house in this context?
Oh, that's the perfect place to start, because without that architecture, the rest of the reading just falls flat. Think of the 12 Zodiac signs as 12 different types of actors, each with a specific personality.
Okay, I'm with you.
Aries is the pioneer, the warrior, the initiator. The planets are the specific drives or verbs, like communication, discipline, or imagination. Now, the 12 houses are the actual stages where these actors and verbs perform.
Oh, got it. So the houses are the literal areas of your life.
Right. Yes. The first house is the literal front door of your chart. It represents your physical body, your outward personality, and your core identity. It's the lens through which you view the entire world.
That's a big deal.
It's a massive deal. When massive, slow-moving planets like Saturn and Neptune park themselves in your first house, they aren't affecting some distant, abstract part of your life, like, distant travel or hidden enemies. They are sitting right in your living room, redecorating your core sense of self.
Redecorating your core sense of self. Wow. And the text notes that because of this, you're feeling an immense pressure to perform, but it's paired with this deep spiritual call to change your life's direction.
Yeah, it's heavy.
It says this is no longer about small goals. This is about who you are at your soul level. You might feel older, wiser, more serious, yet possessing a highly vivid imagination.
That paradox is key.
Right, I was trying to visualize this paradox, and here's the analogy I came up with. Tell me if this tracks. It's as if you've been handed a heavy yellow construction hard hat. That's Saturn. It represents responsibility, gravity, the building of tangible structure.
I like this.
But in your other hand, you've been handed this limitless, magical, glowing paintbrush. That's Neptune, the boundless imagination. And the universe is telling you to use both at the exact same time.
The hard hat and the magical paintbrush, it captures the sheer cognitive dissonance of the month beautifully.
It sounds exhausting, honestly.
Well, let's look at the astronomy for just a second to understand why this feels so heavy. Saturn takes roughly 29 years to orbit the sun. Neptune takes about 165 years.
Wow, okay.
For them to overlap and interact in the specific sector of your identity is a generational rarity. You're feeling the weight of Saturn, which is the taskmaster. Saturn demands that you face reality, look at the clock, and do the tedious work. It represents the limits of the physical world.
And Neptune.
Neptune dissolves all boundaries. It's the planet of dreams, illusions, spirituality, and infinite possibility. It asks you to look beyond the physical world entirely.
See, I have to push back on this a little bit, or at least ask the practical question on behalf of the listener. How does a person practically balance the immediate heavy pressure to perform at their job or, in their family with a deep existential spiritual call to change direction without just completely burning out?
It's a very fair question.
Because sitting here, those feel like two opposing forces just trying to rip you in half.
What's fascinating here is the assumption that they are opposing forces.
They aren't.
They only feel that way until you realize they're actually gears in the exact same machine. Normally, if a person only has strong Neptunian energy active, they have these beautiful, profound, world-changing dreams.
Right.
But those dreams vanish like morning fog the second the alarm clock goes off. Nothing ever gets built. They just sit around philosophizing about what they could do.
Yeah, I know people exactly like that.
We all do. On the other hand, if a person only has Saturnian energy, they become incredibly efficient at building sturdy brick walls. But they might just be building a prison for themselves because they lack the spiritual vision to build a cathedral.
Oh, wow. Building a prison because you lock the vision for a cathedral? That paints a terrifying picture of just mindlessly climbing the corporate ladder without asking where it leans.
Exactly. But the forecast is explicitly telling us that you have both energies at your disposal right now. The dreamer architect era.
The scaffolding and the vision.
Yes. The intense gravity of Saturn is providing the necessary steel scaffolding for the boundless, dreamy imagination of Neptune. That is how true, grounded transformation becomes possible. To answer your question about avoiding burnout, the secret is realizing that the daily performance is the vehicle for the spiritual change.
The performance is the vehicle. Walk me through what that looks like on a random Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, so right now you might feel like you're doing your mundane tasks over here and trying to figure out your soul's purpose way over there.
Right, like they're two different lives.
But the universe isn't asking you to perform your old routines harder while simultaneously trying to become enlightened on the weekends.
Thank goodness.
Right. The pressure you're feeling is the pressure to start building the scaffolding for your new Neptune-inspired vision. You apply Saturn's relentless discipline to Neptune's highest spiritual vision for your life.
So making the dream real.
Exactly. You become dead serious about your dreams. You don't just say, oh, I wish I could write a book or I wish I could start a business. You sit down, you open the spreadsheet, you look at your budget, and you map it out.
That makes a lot of sense.
That's why the text says you feel older and wiser, yet your imagination is more vivid. You are no longer just daydreaming. You are drafting the literal blueprints for your soul's destination.
That completely reframes the exhaustion. You aren't being torn in two directions. You're being asked to use two radically different tools on the exact same project, which is the complete reconstruction of your own identity.
And undertaking a complete reconstruction of your identity requires an immense amount of focus. You're tearing up the floorboards of your own life.
Taking that concept of the architect, let's look at how this scaffolding and discipline applies directly to your professional life. We're taking this hard hat and paintbrush to the office.
Let's do it.
The source material is very clear about the career trajectory this month. It states that with Saturn sitting in your sign, the golden boy or golden girl luck of the past is being officially replaced by earned authority.
Yeah, and the fading of that golden luck can feel like a major crisis if you aren't prepared for it. People panic when they realize they can no longer charm their way out of a missed deadline.
Here's where it gets really interesting regarding that panic. The text gives a very specific timeline. It says that around April 5th to the 10th, you should expect to face a test from a superior, or like a significant challenge in a project you've been leading.
Right, the universe's pop quiz.
Exactly. But it explicitly warns, do not view this as a setback. Saturn is testing your foundations. If you've done the work, passing this test leads to the promotion or the permanent contract.
It really is the ultimate pop quiz, delivered right through the mouth of your boss.
Thinking about this shift from golden boy or girl luck to earned authority, I keep coming back to a sports analogy.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Imagine a phenomenal rookie athlete.
Mm-hmm.
They get drafted into the professional league, and they're just running on pure raw talent and instinct. They make flashy plays, they generate all this hype, they get lucky bounces that make the highlight reel. That's the golden luck.
Sure.
But eventually the rest of the league figures them out. Raw talent plateaus. To become the seasoned veteran-like, the captain of the team, who actually leads a franchise to a championship year after year, they have to study the playbook.
They have to do the work.
Right. They have to spend agonizing hours in the film room. They have to condition their body when no one is watching. They have to earn the authority to lead. April 2026 feels like the exact month you transition from the flashy rookie relying on luck to the veteran captain who commands respect through sheer undeniable experience.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, back to that April 5th timeline, your sports analogy perfectly encapsulates why a challenge from a superior is not a punishment.
It's an opportunity.
Yes. When a head coach decides to test a veteran captain by calling an incredibly complex play in the final seconds of a high-stakes game, it isn't to set the captain up for failure, it's to prove to the entire stadium and to the team that the captain can handle the pressure.
Oh, that's good.
Saturn operates the exact same way. Saturn is the ultimate taskmaster. It does not hand out participation trophies. It gives you absolutely nothing for free.
Right.
But, and this is crucial, it also never takes away what you have genuinely earned through sweat equity.
Let's role play this so the listener knows exactly what to look for. When that boss comes to you on April 6th, drops a stack of papers on your desk and says, the client changed their mind, the deadline is moved up by 3 weeks, and our budget is slashed by 20%, the instinctive reaction is panic.
Total panic.
The rookie reaction is to complain, to feel targeted, or to try and, schmooze the boss into giving you an extension.
Yeah, the rookie reaction is rooted in ego and fear. The veteran reaction, the master of destiny reaction, is structural. Based on this forecast, your internal monologue in that moment should be, here's the test of my foundations. The universe is asking to see the blueprints.
I love that. Here's the test.
You don't complain. You sit down, you look at the new parameters, and you leverage your experience to find the solution. It is a moment of validation masquerading as a crisis.
Masquerading as a crisis.
If you've been doing the tedious, unglamorous work behind the scenes for the past year, this sudden challenge is the platform where your earned authority finally becomes visible to the people who write the checks. It's the catalyst for that permanent contract mentioned in the source.
That is incredibly empowering. It takes the victimhood entirely out of corporate curveballs. But, the text doesn't just stop at Saturn's discipline in the workplace. It brings Neptune back into the career sector, too.
The paintbrush returns.
Yes. It notes that because Neptune is involved, your career path might feel a bit foggy or creative, and then it delivers this massive line. You aren't interested in just making money anymore. You want to leave a legacy.
That's a huge shift.
It adds that creative or healing professions will particularly shine this month. And then it drops a very specific date, April 12th. It notes a favorable Pluto aspect, suggests that a secret power move or a behind-the-scenes negotiation will finally go in your favor.
There is immense psychological depth to unpack there. Let's look at that shift from seeking a paycheck to desiring a legacy. That is the true essence of soul-level evolution.
How so?
When a person is operating purely on basic survival mode, or early career ego, they want the money, the shiny title, the immediate validation of a good performance review.
Right, the gold stars.
Exactly. But as you adopt this architect energy, your time horizon fundamentally expands. You stop asking, how do I get a bonus this quarter? And you start asking, what am I building that will outlast my tenure here?
That's a profound question.
That is a legacy. And legacy work almost always feels foggy at first because there's no established roadmap for it. You aren't following someone else's tracks in the snow. You are charting new territory.
I can completely understand why that fog would be terrifying, especially if you're accustomed to a very linear corporate ladder. Like step 1, get the degree. Step 2, get the entry-level job. Step 3, get the management title. When the ladder suddenly disappears into a cloud of fog, the natural instinct is to freeze.
The instinct is to cling to the last rung you can clearly see. But the text points out that this foggy Neptunian energy is a massive asset, particularly for those in creative or healing professions.
Why is it an asset?
Because when the rigid traditional structures become blurred, you are forced to rely on intuition and unconventional problem solving. You are no longer bound by the way things have always been done in this industry. You become open to radical inspiration.
Before we jump to the April 12th prediction, I need you to explain another piece of astrological terminology for the listener. The text says there is a favorable Pluto aspect. We defined houses earlier, what astronomically or mathematically constitutes an aspect, and who is Pluto in this scenario.
Okay, an aspect is simply the angle or distance between two planets in the sky as viewed from Earth. Think of it as the geometry of a conversation.
The geometry of a conversation.
Okay. If two planets are at a 180-degree angle, which is an opposition, they are shouting at each other from across the room. If they are at a 120-degree angle, a trine, they're sitting next to each other having a harmonious, supportive conversation. A favorable aspect means the energy is flowing smoothly. It's assisting you rather than throwing up roadblocks.
And Pluto?
Pluto, in astrological terms, is the planet of the underworld. It rules hidden things, deep psychological transformation, power dynamics, and wealth. It is the puppet master planet.
Which perfectly sets up the text explicitly calling out a secret power move or a behind-the-scenes negotiation on April 12th.
Notice how perfectly this connects to the earned authority we just discussed. Let's map the timeline.
Let's do it.
You faced the public high-pressure test from the boss around April 5th through the 10th. You didn't panic. You proved your structural soundness. That public victory gives you the silent leverage to make the hidden power move on April 12th.
So you're not just boasting about it.
Right. You don't march into the office demanding a raise while banging your fist on the desk. Behind-the-scenes negotiations require a deep understanding of the unspoken dynamics in a room. You use Neptune's heightened intuition to read the room, understand what the company actually needs, and position yourself as the only logical solution. You orchestrate a scenario where the outcome naturally falls in your favor.
To summarize this career trajectory, you prove your worth under extreme pressure, you shift your psychological mindset from the daily grind to a long-term legacy, and you use your newly earned authority to quietly orchestrate a massive win from the shadows. That is a masterful progression for a single month.
It requires immense strategic focus, but the rewards are permanent.
Now, when your professional identity and ambition shift so drastically toward deeper legacies and earned authority, it is physically impossible for that not to create massive ripples in your personal life.
Oh, absolutely. Everything is connected.
Right. You cannot undergo a profound psychological transformation at the office and then walk through your front door at 6 p.m. as the exact same person you were a month ago. Which leads us directly into how your love and relationships must recalibrate to accommodate this new version of you.
The source text uses the term rebalancing act, and that phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It implies that the current scales are tipping dangerously to one side.
The source notes that because the focus is so heavily on you and your personal evolution this month, your relationships are inevitably going through this rebalancing act. Mid-month, Venus, the planet of love, attraction, and how we relate to others, enters a more grounded sector of your chart.
That's a significant shift.
It is. The text says this brings a distinct shift from fire and passion to stability and comfort. It specifically warns that if you're in a partnership, your partner might perceive you as becoming more distant, cold, or work-obsessed. It emphasizes that communication about your personal transformation is absolutely crucial.
This is a textbook dynamic when one partner undergoes rapid, localized personal growth. The ecosystem of the relationship is disrupted.
It makes me think of an analogy of a ship. Imagine you and your partner are on a cruise ship, and for a long time you've been sailing in one direction. The weather is warm, the seas are smooth, the drinks are flowing, and everyone is having a great time on the sun deck.
Sounds lovely.
It is. That represents the fire, the passion, the easy romance. But suddenly, as the captain of your own identity, you realize you're sailing toward a dead end. You need to steer the ship toward a completely different, much more challenging continent to build your legacy. You grab the wheel, you turn the ship sharply into choppy waters, and you lock yourself in the navigation room to meticulously chart this new course.
And the passengers on the deck are going to panic. They're spilling their drinks, the wind is howling, and the captain is nowhere to be found.
The passengers, your romantic partners, your close friends, your family, they feel the deck tilt beneath their feet. They see you disappear into the navigation room with your Saturn hard hat on. And if you do not pick up the intercom and explain why you're changing course, they are going to assume the worst.
They'll write their own story.
Exactly. They'll assume you're abandoning them, that you're angry with them, or that you simply do not care about the cruise anymore. Hence them perceiving you as distant or work-obsessed. But I do have to ask a somewhat cynical question here, pushing back on the text on behalf of anyone listening who feels a bit nervous about this.
Go for it.
Is this shift from fire and passion to stability and comfort secretly just a polite astrological way of saying the romance is dying down because you're too exhausted from work to care?
That is a very common fear and a really fair question, but I would argue strongly against that interpretation based on the presence of Saturn. The romance isn't dying, it is maturing. Think back to the career discussion.
Okay, the rookie versus the veteran.
Right. We talked about moving from the raw, flashy, rookie golden luck to the seasoned, earned authority. What Venus is doing mid-month is offering you the exact same evolution in your romantic life.
You're saying there's a relationship equivalent of earned authority.
Absolutely. Fire and passion are wonderful, but they are highly combustible. They consume a massive amount of emotional energy. They are the rookie athlete of the relationship, world flashy, dramatic, and exhausting to maintain over a long season.
That's a great point.
Stability and comfort do not mean the relationship has become boring. They mean it has become structurally sound. When you are expending immense amounts of psychological energy out in the world, acting as the architect of your legacy, dealing with Saturnian tests from your boss, navigating Neptunian fogs, you cannot come home to a relationship that also demands you to constantly perform, manage jealousy, or navigate high-stakes emotional drama.
You just collapse.
Exactly. You need a sanctuary. You need a foundation that can hold your weight when you collapse at the end of the day. Stability and comfort are the markers of a bond that can survive the immense pressure you're under this month.
I see the distinction. So the communication the text insists upon is about saying to your partner, I am not pulling away from you because I'm losing interest. I am anchoring myself to you so I can deal with the hurricane outside.
Yes, it's saying, I need you to be my safe harbor right now while I navigate this transformation. The passion will return, but right now, I need your partnership more than I need fireworks. If you don't explicitly communicate that, they just see the back of your head as you stare at your blueprints and resentment builds.
That makes total sense, and this need for absolute clarity really culminates around a specific date mentioned in the text. It highlights the full moon on April 2nd. The text notes this falls on the Libra-Aries axis. It says a relationship climax is highly likely, calling it a make-or-break moment.
A very potent time.
The source explains that if a relationship has been draining your energy, the Saturnian influence will help you cut the cord with maturity.
Yeah.
But if it's a strong bond, you might decide to take a massive step together, giving examples like buying a home or getting engaged. Before we look at the make-or-break, define the Libra-Aries axis for us.
In astrology, signs sitting exactly opposite each other in the sky form an axis, which represents a spectrum of a specific theme. Aries is the first sign. It represents the self, independence, and me.
Right.
Libra is the seventh sign. It represents partnership, harmony, and we. A full moon always brings hidden things to the surface. So a full moon on the me-we axis illuminates exactly how much your partnerships are either supporting your individual identity or suffocating it. It demands balance.
The make-or-break phrasing is incredibly intense. Let's unpack the break scenario first. The text says you'll cut the cord with maturity due to the Saturnian influence. What does that actually look like in real life? Because in my experience, breakups are messy, dramatic, emotional affairs full of accusations.
They usually are, but Saturn removes the fiery drama and replaces it with cold, hard reality. Saturn does not have the time or the energy for screaming matches in the driveway or vindictive text messages. When Saturn highlights a draining relationship during a full moon, it simply shows you the math.
Showing them the math. I love that phrasing. Give me an example of what that conversation sounds like.
It sounds incredibly calm, which is sometimes more jarring than anger. It sounds like sitting down and saying, I am moving into a phase of my life that requires absolute focus to build my future. I have X amount of energy to give. This relationship currently costs Y amount of energy, largely through managing recurring conflicts. I am operating at a deficit, and this structure will eventually collapse. I care for you, but this dynamic is fundamentally incompatible with the trajectory I'm on. Mature cord cutting means you do not break up because you suddenly hate the person. You break up because you finally acknowledge the structural reality. It is an act of necessity, performed with respect and finality. You accept the situation without trying to dress it up in Neptunian illusions about how maybe they'll change next month.
That is incredibly sobering,
Mm.
but also incredibly freeing. It removes the guilt of staying in something just because you don't want to be the bad guy. You aren't the bad guy. You're just the architect refusing to build a house on quicksand.
And on the flip side, look at the make scenario. If the relationship is strong and has proven to be that safe harbor we discussed, Saturn provides the necessary weight to make monumental, life-altering commitments. Notice the specific examples the text provided: buying a home or getting engaged.
Both of those are massive, tangible, structural commitments. They aren't just saying, like, I love you more.
Exactly. Buying a home is literally purchasing a physical structure. It's signing a 30-year legal mortgage. It's tying your financial realities together. It is the ultimate Saturnian act of grounding an emotional relationship in physical reality.
And getting engaged.
Getting engaged is a formal, structural, legal, and spiritual binding of two lives. It's taking the ephemeral, invisible feeling of love and giving it a concrete architecture. So whether you're ending a draining bond or solidifying a strong one, the April 2nd full moon is entirely about establishing the structural integrity of your personal life so it can actually support the new master of destiny identity you are building.
It's remarkably cohesive. Everything is continually pointing back to that dreamer architect energy. Once you've used that Saturn energy to cut the cord on draining relationships or solidify the good ones, you suddenly have a surplus of mental bandwidth.
You've freed up the system.
Exactly. And the universe immediately redirects that new bandwidth to your literal physical survival, your resources. This brings us to how you go about grounding the vision financially.
We're moving from the philosophical architecture of your life to the literal bricks and mortar, the bank account, the spreadsheet.
So what does this all mean? The source text marks a major shift on April 20th. It says the sun moves into Taurus, which it notes highlights your second house of earned income and values.
Right.
The text states very plainly that the last 10 days of the month are much more focused on your bank account than your ego. It notes you might feel an urge to invest in something long-term, and it explicitly warns that with the current planetary alignments, get-rich-quick schemes will fail miserably.
Big warning there.
Yeah. However, it says investments in land, technology, or green energy look very promising. For the sake of clarity, what does the second house represent?
If the first house is your physical body and identity, the second house represents what you need to sustain that body. It's your material possessions, your earned income, your physical resources, and deeply your sense of self-worth. It is the foundation of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Do you have food, shelter, and security?
The shift from ego spending to bank account spending is a profound maturation. I want to talk about that dynamic. I feel like spending from ego is buying the flashy, impractical sports car so people look at you at the stoplight. Spending for the bank account is buying the reliable hybrid that holds its resale value, saves on gas, and keeps you out of the mechanic shop.
Taking that further, it's about recognizing that the hybrid gives you geographic and financial freedom, whereas the sports car traps you in a cycle of maintenance and anxiety over a scratch on the bumper.
Such a good point.
Spending from ego is fundamentally rooted in insecurity. It's trying to purchase an identity that you haven't actually earned yet. But remember, we established in the career section that you are earning true, undeniable authority this month.
You already have it.
Right. When you possess genuine internal authority, you no longer need outward flashy symbols to prove your worth to strangers at a stoplight. Therefore, your entire financial strategy shifts. You stop buying toys to appease your ego, and you start buying foundations to secure your future.
That perfectly explains the stark warning about get-rich-quick schemes failing miserably. A get-rich-quick scheme like throwing money at a volatile meme coin because someone on the internet told you to is the ultimate rejection of Saturn's discipline.
It really is.
It's an attempt to skip the hard work, bypass the learning curve, and jump straight to the reward. Saturn simply will not allow a shortcut this month. It will crush it.
Saturn demands the long, arduous road, which is why the text's specific recommendations for investment are so incredibly fitting for this specific astrological weather.
Let's look at those recommendations. Land, technology, and green energy. Land makes complete sense of what we've been talking about. It's the most Saturnian investment possible.
It's the Earth itself.
It's literally the earth beneath your feet. It's tangible, it's immovable, and historically, it appreciates slowly and steadily over time. But technology and green energy, those feel very different. Why do those fit the architect energy?
This raises an important question, and it brings us right back to the dual nature of your month. Saturn and Neptune. Land satisfies the Saturn requirement for tangible structure. But technology and green energy, those satisfy Neptune.
Really? How?
Neptune rules the intangible, the future, the visionary, and the unseen interconnectedness of all things. Green energy is literally a visionary attempt to harmonize human structure with the boundless natural world. It is the future of infrastructure. Technology is the invisible, ethereal network that connects humanity across physical borders. So by investing your resources in these areas, you are literally putting your money where your dreamer architect energy is. You are funding the physical infrastructure of a visionary future.
But the text also issues a massive red flag regarding your finances. It says to watch out for April 24th. There is a tricky aspect between Mars and Neptune that could lead to a too-good-to-be-true financial offer.
You have to be so careful here.
It advises that if someone asks you to put money to something you do not fully understand, you must wait until May. And then there's this line, your intuition is high, but Neptune can sometimes blur the fine print. First, what is this tricky aspect mathematically?
The text is referring to a square. A square is a 90-degree angle between two planets. Unlike the supportive 120-degree trine we discussed earlier, a 90-degree square creates intense friction, tension, and conflict. It's two cars arriving at an intersection at the exact same time and refusing to yield. Here, the cars are Mars and Neptune.
And Mars represents what?
Mars is the planet of action, impulse, aggression, and speed. It wants to move right now. It does not want to read the manual. We have talked about Neptune's beautiful, visionary qualities, but Neptune's shadow side is that it is the planet of illusions, mirages, and deception. When you mix the impulsivity of Mars with the deceptive fog of Neptune, you get a highly volatile cocktail.
The way I picture this April 24th square is like being incredibly thirsty and wandering through a desert. Suddenly you see this lush, beautiful oasis in the distance. It has palm trees, sparkling blue water. It's exactly what you need.
A literal lifesaver.
Right. And Mars is screaming at you, run! Go drink the water right now before someone else gets to it. But Neptune is the heat waves rising off the sand, creating the mirage. It looks exactly like the oasis you desperately want. But if you give in to Mars and dive in, you just end up with a mouthful of hot sand.
That is a brilliant visualization of the Mars-Neptune square. The intense desire generated by Mars completely blinds you to the reality of the illusion generated by Neptune. The text perfectly captures the tension here by saying, your intuition is high, but Neptune can sometimes blur the fine print. Intuition is a feeling, the fine print is a legal fact, and the legal fact is what drains your bank account.
How do you practically navigate that paradox? If your intuition is telling you this is a great idea, but the fine print is literally blurred by astrological fog, do you trust the gut feeling or do you run away? So the Tark is saying, I shouldn't invest in anything at all this month.
No, remember the earlier advice about land and green energy? The text isn't saying don't invest, it's saying don't invest under an artificial deadline. You navigate the paradox by applying Saturn. You apply the brakes. The text gives you the exact remedy. Wait until May.
Just hit pause.
Yes, you do not have to say a hard no immediately and burn the bridge, but you absolutely must refuse to say yes while under pressure. If a financial offer is genuinely structurally sound, if it is a real oasis and not a mirage, it will still be there in 7 days when the astrological fog lifts and Mars moves on. If the person offering the deal says you have to sign today or you lose the opportunity forever, that is the telltale sign of a mirage. That is Mars trying to force impulsive action to bypass Saturn's due diligence. The Master of Destiny does not get pressured into signing contracts they haven't read. They dictate the timeline.
The Master of Destiny dictates the timeline. I want the listener to write that down. So on April 24th, you put your hands in your pockets, you step back from the oasis, and you wait for the sun to go down to see if the water is actually real. You protect the resources you have worked so incredibly hard to accumulate.
Precision and patience are your greatest financial assets at the end of the month.
Carrying this newly earned professional authority, Navigating these intense relationship climaxes and managing complex financial mirages, it takes a massive toll on the human body. We are not machines. Which brings us to the final and perhaps most vital part of the forecast: health, spirit, and the weight of the crown.
Authority is heavy. The crown alters the posture of the person wearing it.
The source text addresses this head-on. It acknowledges that as an Aries, you're a fire sign, naturally full of boundless energy. You're used to moving fast. But it says the presence of Saturn in your sign can feel incredibly heavy, almost like walking through water.
Yeah, that's a perfect description.
It predicts you might experience significantly more fatigue than usual this month. And it gives this fascinating explanation for the exhaustion. Your physical body is literally recalibrating to handle more power.
That completely reframes exhaustion from a symptom of failure to a symptom of necessary growth. We usually view fatigue as a sign that we're doing something wrong, that we're failing to keep up.
I was thinking about it like upgrading a computer. Imagine you have a computer that's been running basic, lightweight word processing software for years. It runs fast, it feels light, the battery lasts forever.
Sure.
Suddenly, you decide to install a massive, highly complex professional video editing suite. That heavy software is your new identity, your new power, your new legacy. While the computer is installing that software and processing those massive files, everything else slows down. The fan is loudly whirring, the screen might freeze for a second, and it feels sluggish. The computer isn't broken, the hardware is just recalibrating to handle a much heavier processing load. That is your physical body this month.
The hardware upgrade analogy is incredibly accurate. And the physical manifestation of this recalibration is very specific. The text advises you to focus on Saturnian areas of the physical body: bone health and skin.
Why bones and skin specifically? I wouldn't think to correlate a planet with dermatology.
Because Saturn rules boundaries, limits, and structures in all forms, including the human body. Your bones are the literal architectural scaffolding of your physical form. They hold you upright against the crushing force of gravity.
Right.
Your skin is the ultimate physical boundary. It is the wall that separates your internal, private identity from the external, public world. When Saturn is heavily active and testing your limits, these physical structures take the brunt of the physiological stress. You might feel it as literal aches in your joints, stiffness in your lower back, or your skin breaking out, becoming inflamed, or acting up as a stress response. It is your body's physical alarm system saying, "We are fortifying the walls to handle this new authority. Please give us the nutrients, the hydration, and the deep rest required to do so."
So drink your calcium, moisturize relentlessly, and take the fatigue seriously instead of trying to push through it with caffeine. But the text doesn't stop at the physical body. It dives deep into the mental and spiritual toll, and this is where the forecast gets profoundly deep. It says you must focus on your mental health because the Neptune influence can cause identity confusion. It suggests you might find yourself looking around at your life and asking, who am I even doing this for?
That is the existential crisis hidden within the Trojan horse of success. It is a terrifying question to ask.
I want to ask you, the listener, directly. Have you ever had that moment? Have you ever looked in the mirror, maybe right after achieving a goal you worked years for, or in the middle of a chaotic Tuesday where everyone needs a piece of you, and genuinely thought, who am I even doing this for? Is this for me? Is this for my partner? Is this to meet my parents' expectations? Am I just operating on pure momentum because I don't know how to stop?
It's terrifying because the honest answer to that question might demand that you dismantle the life you have spent years building, but it is a necessary threshold to cross. This identity confusion is not a mental breakdown. It is the intentional psychological dissolution of your old ego. We call it ego death.
Ego death. That's a strong phrase.
Neptune dissolves boundaries. Right now, it is dissolving the false motivations that used to drive you. When you were operating out of golden luck or early career ego, you were likely doing it for the applause, the validation, the gold star. Now that you are transitioning to earned authority and legacy, the applause feels hollow. You realize it doesn't sustain you. You are in a liminal space shedding an old skin, and while you are between skins, you feel incredibly vulnerable, raw, and confused about your own shape.
How do you practically handle that level of identity confusion without spiraling into a depression, blowing up your life, or quitting your job in a panic?
The text gives us the exact prescription for navigating the liminal space. It highlights a critical window, April 18th to the 22nd. It explicitly advises you to spend time near water or in deep meditation during this period. Why? Because it says this is when the cosmic downloads will be strongest and you are receiving a blueprint for your future self.
Cosmic downloads near water. That sounds beautifully poetic, but let's ground it for the skeptic. Water is the element of emotion, of the subconscious, and traditionally associated with Neptune. But how does sitting by a lake fix an existential crisis?
It is about neuroscience, just as much as it is about astrology. When you are experiencing profound identity confusion, your rational, problem-solving mind, your Saturnian brain, cannot solve the problem. You cannot logic your way out of a spiritual crisis. You cannot create a spreadsheet to find your soul's purpose.
I've tried. It doesn't work.
Exactly. You have to feel your way through it, or rather allow the answers to arrive quietly. When you engage in active problem solving, your brain is focused outward. When you step away and engage in meditation or sit by the ocean, you activate the default mode network in your brain. This is where subconscious processing, memory consolidation, and deep insights occur. Water environments, whether that's literally sitting on a beach, walking by a river, or even just taking a long, deliberate bath in silence, quiet the static of the external world. You are creating a silent, receptive space. A download is just a modern technological metaphor for a profound epiphany. It is a sudden, crystal-clear understanding of your direction that seems to arrive from outside your conscious thought process because your subconscious finally had the quiet room to hand it to you.
So between April 18th and 22nd, you are actively facilitating these epiphanies by deliberately stepping away from the noise of the office, the relationship demands, and the financial spreadsheets. You are giving the internal architect time to look at the new blueprints in absolute silence.
Precisely. You stop talking and you start listening. And the text ends this health and spirit section with a metaphor that ties the entire month together. It says, don't rush the process. You are a work in progress, and the universe is currently your master sculptor.
A master sculptor. That implies profound intentionality. The universe isn't just randomly throwing rocks at you, it's actively, meticulously chiseling away the excess marble to reveal the masterpiece hidden inside. But chiseling requires friction. It requires a sharp blade and a heavy hammer.
It hurts to be chiseled. It means losing pieces of yourself, your habits, and your relationships that you thought were permanent fixtures of your identity. But those pieces were just covering up the true form. If you try to rush a master sculptor, they make a fatal mistake. If you resist the chisel and refuse to yield, you break the marble entirely. You have to surrender to the process of being shaped by the intense experiences of this month.
That is heavy, but deeply comforting. It provides a massive sense of purpose to the fatigue, the workplace tests, and the relationship clarity. It frames the entire month not as a series of random hurdles to survive, but as a deliberate initiation to endure.
It really is an initiation.
Let's synthesize everything we've unpacked today. The source text summarizes your month beautifully, creating a perfect narrative arc. It says that the first half of April is entirely dedicated to leadership and action. That's the Saturnian test from the boss, the public display of your structural foundations, the sheer pressure to perform and prove your worth.
Yes.
And then the second half of the month shifts to stabilizing and securing. That's the pivot to the bank account, the mature cord-cutting or committing in relationships, the behind-the-scenes power moves, and the quiet meditation by the water to receive your downloads.
It's the natural rhythm of breathing, exertion, followed by integration. Inhale, exhale.
The text reminds you that as an Aries, you are the pioneer of the Zodiac. You are used to being first. But in April 2026, you aren't just pioneering for the sake of novelty or adrenaline. You are leading yourself, and those around you, into a new era of disciplined dreaming. The architect and the dreamer working in perfect, synthesized unison.
That is how you build a legacy that outlasts your physical presence.
And the text provides a powerful affirmation for you to carry through this entire process. I want to read it directly to you, the listener, right now. I am the master of my destiny. I have the vision to see my future and the discipline to build it. I am grounded, I am powerful, and I am ready. And of course, a quick reminder from the source to check your moon and rising signs for the full, nuanced picture of your astrological weather, as those elements add further context to how you process emotion and present yourself to the world.
That affirmation perfectly encapsulates the synthesis we've been discussing. It merges Neptune's boundless vision with Saturn's relentless discipline. But before we end this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We discussed the profound metaphor of the universe acting as your master sculptor and how this month is fundamentally about forging your long-term structural legacy. The master of destiny is not born overnight, They are painstakingly carved out of raw, painful experience. So, as you face the professional pressures, navigate the Neptunian fogs, and weather the relationship climaxes of April, what piece of your old identity, what comforting but completely outdated illusion about who you are you still fiercely clinging to that the sculptor is actively trying to chisel away?